Come down for a brand new car. Come see our dealership on Saturday. You're going to love it. But no, I'm actually teaching math. I'm not trying to sell you a car. We are dealing with Module 6, Lesson 12. And what you've seen so far in 4th grade decimals is pretty easy. It's not very complicated in 4th grade. You won't realize that until you get to 5th grade and see how hard the decimals are in 5th grade. But 4th grade is fairly simple. Today in Lesson 12, we are trying to add tenths to hundreds. And on Thursday, we're going to do a quick lesson on adding decimals, just pure adding of decimals like we do with money. But today, we're going to keep it simple. We are going to add decimals by adding our fractions first, by adding tenths and hundredths. And if you remember from earlier in fractions, you cannot add two fractions that have different denominators. You can only add fractions that have the same denominator. So this is going to be a lesson where you're converting tenths into hundredths quite a bit. And I've also got to introduce you to using decimal, using the tenths and the hundredths on your place value chart. It's quite different than what you were used to before. So if you're looking at this place value chart now, I've shown you before that the ones are on the left hand side, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. On this side we have tenths, hundredths, thousands, and it keeps going that way. The numbers get bigger on the bottom, the parts get smaller and smaller. But whenever we are regrouping, instead of regrouping to the left like you're used to, we're going to be regrouping to the right. Let me show you what I mean. And we're going to look at this a couple of different ways. So if we're looking at 3 tenths plus 4 hundredths, like I said before, you can't add these two right now. We need to turn our tenths into hundredths. So let's see what that looks like in our place value chart. So if I put 3 tenths, I'm going to put 3 dots, and over here I'm going to use red to show 4 hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now what they're doing in Eureka is, in order to show what 3 tenths plus 4 hundredths is together, all you have to do is regroup these tenths. Now remember, whenever you're moving from place value to place value, you're moving by 10. So one of these tenths equals 10 hundredths. So we're moving to the right this time. Keep that in mind. So let me use blue to regroup since we're dealing with the tenths. So draw an arrow this way, and that tenth is going to equal 1, 9, 10. I do another one. I do another one, 10. So what do I have over here? Now I have 30. So 3 tenths equals 30 hundredths. You can see that when I regroup. And if you add the 4 more, we end up with 34 hundredths. All right, let's look at it as an area model. As an area model, I can go ahead and show you 3 tenths. So there's 1 tenth, 3 tenths. You write that below. That's 3 tenths. And remember, how do we show hundredths when we're dealing with a tenth type setup? Well, what you have to do is you have to create 10 spaces. 9 creates 10 spaces. Therefore, I shade in my 4 hundredths here, 1, then if we add these two together, 400. And I can show that even more by I'm going to go ahead and connect these. Okay, if I do it this way, I've created 30 tens now, 30 hundredths. So if this is 30 hundredths and this is 400, I add those together and I get 34 over 1. It's really simple. I'm going to turn this again into 30 over 100. I add it to the 400s and I get 34 hundredths. That's basically all this lesson is about. And it's going to show you in a few different ways. So once you get done practicing this, I'm going to put a fluency page with this as well. So you can practice going from tenths to hundreds and hundreds to tenths. It gets real easy. Another simple way of doing this, guys, you've seen this trick before. If I want to create an equivalent fraction in hundredths, I have to multiply 10 top and bottom. 10 times 3 is 30, and 10 times 10 equals 100. Or, what was the other easy way of doing that? 3 tenths as hundredths, I just add a 0. Times 10 is add a 0. Okay? You can use that trick too. 3 tenths would be 30 hundredths by just adding the 0. Let's try another one real quick. 6 tenths in hundredths, add a 0. Add a 0 is 60 hundredths. It's that easy, folks. So I'm going to go back to the problem set on the computer, and I'm going to show you your problem set page 1 and problem set page 2, and show you step by step how to do each one of these problem set pages. And when we come back on Thursday, then we're going to be dealing with the money. We're going to take our money, we're going to add dollars, and we're going to start working in this ones and tens column. So basically the lesson is going to be about adding mixed number decimals to another mixed number decimal. And I feel like once you do that, you're going to be better prepared for 5th grade. Like I said, one of the first modules in 5th grade is going to be decimals. It's going to hit you hard with decimals. But one thing you can do over the summer is add money together. Try adding some dollars and cents together. Work with your parent. Add some money together and you're going to be better prepared. See you on the problem set. Okay, here we are with the Lesson 12 problem set. And as you can see on the very first problem, we have the good old place value work. And it says, complete the number sentence by expressing each part using hundreds. Model using the place value chart as shown below, or shown in part A. So it's showing you on the first one that when you have tenths and you want to change it into hundreds, you're going to regroup to the right. 1/10 is equal to 10 hundredths. Just like it did on the other side with ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. When you would move to the left, you would regroup 10 more. So remember, this lesson is all about changing tenths to hundredths and then adding it to hundredths. So the first problem shows 1/10. There's your 1/10 right there. And you want to add 5 hundredths. So what happens is it gets moved over, goes this way, and they become 10 hundredths. Those 10 hundredths are added to the 5 hundredths that are already there. So 10 plus 5 equals 15 hundredths. I'm going to change the size on that. That is big. Let's move it down to 14. There we go. Alright, so let's scroll down here. Now the next one shows 2/10 plus 1/100th. So what we have to do is we have to show that 1/100th first. Let's use red this time. So we have 1/100th. Let me make it a little bit bigger. 1/100th. Okay? And then we have 2/10 over here. I'm going to use blue for that. 1, 2. Okay? And remember, to turn tenths into hundredths, I have to shift over that way. So let me draw a line. They have to move over here. So I need 1/10 that turns into 10 hundredths and another tenth that turns into 10 hundredths. I need to show those. Now these are going to be a different size for the sake of saving space. So I'm going to move down to this size. So let's put 10 here for the first tenth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then the next tenth is 10 hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so if we count them all together now in the hundredths place here, we have 10 plus 10 plus 1/100th is equal to 21 hundredths. So let me get my text box. So we have 21 hundredths. Now what I want to also mention here is I didn't do this on the board in the previous video, but we need to show you what does that look like as a decimal. So remember, 21 hundredths would be 0.21. Keep that in mind as we move ahead. You want to do the same thing here. Put the 1/10 and the 12 hundredths. Turn the 1/10 into 10 hundredths. Add it to the 12. You would get 10 plus 12. That is 22 hundredths. Very simple. Alright, let's look at number 2. Now, this might look complicated at first, but it's fairly simple. You just have to pay attention to the language, to the units. It says solve by converting all add-ins to hundredths before solving. So the add-ins are the things that you add. So we go from 1/10 to 3 hundredths, and we need to change that tenth into hundredths. So 1/10
turns into how many hundredths? 1/10, just add a 0 to it, is 10 hundredths. 10 hundredths plus 3 hundredths is 13 hundredths. See how easy that is? Let's look at D. I have 37 hundredths plus 7 tenths. This time they're leaving all of these blank, and 37 hundredths is already in hundredths. They're trying to trick you here. That's 37 hundredths. 7 tenths, just add a 0 to that 7, 70 hundredths. And now you have to do some adding. But in this lesson, we're going to see that we're going to move up to the ones place. So watch this. 3 plus 7 is 10. Plus 7 more is 107. Now, as a decimal, you're going to see that when you have 100 hundredths, that is equal to 1. Let me draw that for you. 100 over 100 is equal to 1, folks. So if I want to draw that as a decimal, I have 1 whole number plus 7 hundredths. So that's going to be 0.7. Remember, the second place is the hundredths place. So as a decimal, that's actually 1.07. All right, let's move on to the next page. All right, let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, now we're dealing with convert tenths to hundredths as needed. Write your answer as a decimal. So this is a little bit more freestyle. So we see here we have 2 tenths plus 8 hundredths. What do we have to do? The tenths has to become hundredths. What was that simple trick I showed you? Turn the tenths into hundredths by adding a 0 top and bottom. The same thing as multiplying 10 times the top and bottom. So let's do that. Let me change my size a little bit. Alright, so 2 tenths becomes 20 over 100. 2 tenths is equal to 20 hundredths plus 8 hundredths equals 20 plus 8 is 28 over 100. Now it says write your answer as a decimal, so we need a decimal too. I've got to convert 28 hundredths into a decimal, so let's get a different text box. 28 hundredths, remember, that's going to be on the right hand side, 0.28. That says 28 hundredths or 28 cents. Let's try D down here. Now we have 70 hundredths. 70 hundredths plus 3 tenths. Add a 0. That's all you got to do is add a 0. Let me just do that here with my drawing tool. Add a 0. Add a 0. Bad 0. So let me go back to the text box. 30 hundredths equals 70 plus 30 equals 100 over 100. What does that equal as a decimal? Well, remember, any number over itself is equal to one whole number. Okay? So that's going to be 1.0. No extra hundredths, simply just one whole number. Okay, we need to practice that. Now, we have a word problem here, and we have these write your answer as a decimal. Now, these are simple too, but they get bigger than one whole number. These are all bigger than one whole number. Let's look at A. We have 9 tenths. Since we know what to do now, let's go ahead and convert it right away. 9 tenths is equal to 90 over 100 plus 42 over 100. You can get your calculator out. You can do it with pencil and paper. 90 plus 42 is equal to 132 over 100. Now pay attention to this. 132 is bigger than 100. So if I pull these out, let's do a little number bond. Let's do a little number bond. 100 is equal to 1, and I have 32 over 100 left over. Okay? So let's get a text box and write the decimal. 1 and 32 hundredths is 1.32. Let's try one more down here. What does this say? This looks like a typo. I have 70 tenths plus 87. It says 1V00. That doesn't look right. Let's call it 87 hundredths. I can't believe Eureka has a mistake in it. But, very simple. 7 tenths is, add a 0, 70 hundredths. Plus 87 over 100. Again, calculator or paper, it doesn't matter. 70 plus 87 is 157 over 100, 157 hundredths. And if we do the number bond, I have 100 over 100 is 1, and 57 hundredths left over. And let's use a text box to show that decimal, 1.57 or 1 and 57 hundredths. Okay, this word problem is a little tricky, so I went ahead and modeled it out for you to make it a little bit simpler for you to understand. It is a trick question because it says beaker A has 63 hundredths liters of iodine. So the red would be the iodine. It is filled the rest of the way up with up to 1 liter with water. So if this is a 1 liter beaker, it's filled all the way to the top. Beaker B has 4 tenths. Remember, 4 tenths is 40 hundredths. So here's 40 hundredths of iodine in red. And the rest is filled up with water up to 1 liter. If both beakers are emptied into a large beaker, so here's a large beaker over here, how much iodine does the large beaker contain? So if we empty both of these as a liquid, it would be 2 liters altogether, but that's not what it asks you. It asks you how much iodine would be in the large beaker. So essentially what they're asking you to do is what we've been doing through this whole lesson, which is add 63 hundredths to 4 tenths. So let's do some text box here. So this text box, let's do red for iodine. This text box says 63 hundredths. And this beaker here is 4 tenths, but we already know that is 40 hundredths. Okay? And then we just have to add these two to show how much iodine is over here. But I'm going to do one extra step after this. So, if I add 63 hundredths plus 40 hundredths, 63 plus 40 is 103 over 100. Now let's look at the decimal. Remember, we're trying to add fractions to represent decimals. So let's make a new text box and show that 100 over 100 equals 1. I have 3 hundredths left over, so that would be 0.3 liters. Okay? But let's do something different here. Let's actually add these decimals, which we're going to do on Thursday. So let me make a new text box and show 0.63 plus 0.40 hundredths, and then I'm going to put a line here. I'm going to put a line here. No, undo that. Let's make our line thinner. I'm going to put a line here, okay, and a plus sign. Let's go back to text box. Okay, down here. Now, when you're adding decimals, you need to keep in mind that these decimal points stay in one line. They don't change. So if we go over here, well, let me just give you the answer. It would be 1.03. So we added 3 plus 0 is 3. 6 plus 4 is 10. We regroup the 1 over the 1's place. 1 plus 0 is 1.03. We're going to practice this on Thursday. But that's what the decimal would look like, 1.03. Well, guys, practice converting those tenths into hundredths and adding your hundredths, and then give a decimal answer. That's going to be the tricky part. You have a fluency that goes along with this lesson. If you really want to know how to do this, practice the fluency, have your parents check your work, and I'll see you back on Thursday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.